Hello, wild people! Resupplying your long-distance backpacking trip does not have to be a mysterious, stressful experience. Today, I'm going to offer you some tips for resupplying your long-distance hike on the Pacific Crest Trail as you journey through Oregon and Washington. Thank you for tuning in to AK Wild One. If this is your first time visiting the channel, you might want to watch last week's episode, Resupply Tips Part 1, where I talk about the methods of resupplying your Pacific Crest Trail trip through California and the advantages and disadvantages of the different options. This week, I'll continue my resupply strategy as we navigate through Oregon and through Washington. So please take a moment to hit that like button and also subscribe to this channel. It helps a lot. Last week I mentioned I used two resources to help with my planning. One is my quick resupply guide, which contains mile points of the possible resupply towns along the trail, and whether I would send a resupply box to the location or shop in town. I also came up with a system to describe the level of resupply options in each town. I also use my Far Out app and read comments from other hikers to find out the best places to shop in real time. So last week we got through California. This week it's on to Oregon and Washington. There are not as many trail towns along the way when traveling through Oregon and Washington, so you might wind up sending more resupply boxes along the trail unless you can satisfy your needs through the small stores and lodges you encounter along the way. So let's go to Oregon. By now, you're hiking strong 20-mile plus days, and a lot of people say you can really pile on the miles in Oregon. 25 to 40-mile days are possible. In 2023, we hiked Oregon in July, and it rained a grand total of 10 minutes. When the temperatures were in the 90s, the most we could hike was 25 miles a day, with 20 miles a day more the norm. Now that's just us. Okay, Oregon. You could Rambo your way through Oregon and hit places with minimal selection after minimal selection. It's possible to resupply this way. Otherwise, here is what I would do as an older, determined hiker, hiking about 20 miles a day. So from Callahan's at mile 17-18, I would consider catching a ride into Ashland or even going to Medford, Oregon, and spend a day or two preparing resupply boxes to the locations highlighted in yellow on my quick resupply guide. These places include Crater Lake, Shelter Cove, Elks Lake, and Big Lake Youth Camp. If you're on a roll, you might be able to skip Elks Lake and just go to Sisters or Bend to resupply. All the other places, I've listed the stores and the level of resupply options. When you hit Olali Lake, remember you'll need cash because last year in 2023, the store only took cash because it's remote and it doesn't have an internet connection for a point of sale system. After Olali Lake, you could take a cheap bus ride into Government Camp from Timberline Lodge, or see what you can pick up at Timberline Lodge and continue on to Cascade Locks, about 50 miles farther. Okay, Washington is also different. Resupply places are strung out, and you have some nice elevation gains and descents, so you'll be burning through a lot of calories. It might behoove you to spend a day in Portland or another town near Cascade Locks and prepare some resupply boxes to stops along the trail in Washington. So, if I were hiking again through Washington, I would send resupply boxes to Trout Lake, White Pass, Snoqualmie Pass, and Stehekin. At mile 2464, you can catch a ride into Leavenworth to resupply. Skykomish is another option, but the selection is not that good. just a small restaurant and a gas station. Mazama at mile 2591 has a good store to resupply, or you could just push on 30 miles to the border from Hart's Pass rather than resupplying in Mazama, because catching a ride to town and back to Hart's Pass isn't always the easiest hitch. Okay, so let's talk about resupply boxes. Here is a resupply box, USPS flat rate supply box. The dimensions are 5.5 inches deep by a foot wide all around. To send a large resupply box costs around $23. It will comfortably hold a 5-day resupply for a very hungry hiker, or more depending on your level of creativity. When I ship from Alaska, it takes no longer than 5 business days to reach its destination. Mailing between points in the lower 48 should be faster. I don't have any great insights or revelations when packing a resupply box except this one. If I'm packing dehydrated meals, sometimes I'll open them up and empty the contents into a quart-sized baggie, making sure it's sealed tightly because you don't want it to explode in transit. Or I could pour the contents into one baggie and reinforce it by placing the original baggie in a second one. This saves space because much of the original packaging is air. And then I fold down 2 of the foil pouches and discard the others. I'll reuse my foil pouches along the trail, cleaning them out with hot water after each use and airing them out. This saves space and reduces the amount of garbage I collect along the trail. A creative thru-hiker can pack about a week's worth of garbage in a quart-sized baggie. So in addition to the 5 dehydrated meals, I add the following items to a resupply box. Energy bars. I'll eat about 5 of these a day, so about 25. Non-hydration tablets or liquid IV packets. Sometimes I open these up and I pour my freeze-dried coffee into these old Nun containers, or do the same with the liquid IV. They're pretty light and it saves space and reduces garbage. I also include snacks du jour, things I seem to crave along the trail, like gorp, beef jerky, chocolate bars, or if I'm feeling decadent, I'll pack a small jar of peanut butter for those hiker hunger cravings. Or maybe, just maybe, where are they here? Some tuna or salmon packets or chicken packets to increase my protein intake. I also include a chapstick, maybe sunblock, hand sanitizer, dude wipes, or toilet paper. It might not be a bad idea to include a small bar of soap in case you find a shower along the way, or an individual detergent packet in a separate sealed baggie. I also throw in a few baggies, gallon baggies, because I always seem to find uses for these. Now you shouldn't pack batteries or fuel canisters in your resupply packages to avoid potential trouble with the authorities. Then when you have your box stuffed, tape it tightly using the perpendicular taping method. Write the mailing address in the middle right section of the box, including your name, the shipping address, city, state, zip code, and maybe include the phrase PCT hiker and the date you are expected to arrive at the location. In the upper left-hand corner, write your return address and make sure you don't use a post office box along the trail as your return. Also, one post office official recommends putting your cell phone number in this location at the bottom of all that information there. She said that's the best way to reunite a hiker with a lost hiker box. And finally, make sure you creatively decorate your box so you can pick it out in case it's among many others. Chances are you'll need to show your ID when you're picking up a resupply box, so make sure you have it with you. If you get to a town and you don't need your resupply box, ask the post office to bump it to another town along the trail. They'll usually do this for no charge, so long as you haven't opened your box. All of the post office folks I met along the trail were very kind and supportive. Well, wild people, that's about it. Remember to check out the links in the description, and you'll also find instructions on how to access my quick resupply guide. I've also linked other resources you can use to plan your hike and resupply strategy. Please hit the like button and subscribe. It helps a lot. It helps support this channel. And so, until we meet again, happy trails and live wildly, my friends.